Thanks. Have you bought it at Versailles? In the form?
Oh yeah, Versailles. I love Versailles.
Me too.
Shh, it's the film flavors.
Hey guys, I'm Chris.
Hey everybody, it's Versailles.
You mean Robert?
Yeah,
Robert?
Robert. Right.
And we're the Film Flamers, and we're continuing our Paul Verhoeven adventure with Showgirls.
We know you're all very, very excited.
Yeah.
So, Showgirls is a 1995 erotic drama film directed by Paul Verhoeven, of course, and written by Joe Eszterhas. It stars Elizabeth Berkley, Kyle McLachlan, and the two Ginas, Gershon and Ravera. The film centers on a street-smart drifter who ventures into Las Vegas and climbs the seedy hierarchy from stripper to showgirl. The film was a second collaboration between Verhoeven and Eszterhas after their success with Basic Instinct.
Featuring nudity and erotic sexuality throughout, some graphic language and sexual violence, Showgirls was the first NC-17 film to receive a wide release in North America, with distributor United Artists sending hundreds of staffers to theaters showing the film to enforce the age restrictions.
Okay, listeners. No one makes our tits pop like you do. This is Showgirls.
What are you going to Vegas for? You gonna win?
I'm gonna dance.
There's a spot open in the chorus line. We're auditioning tomorrow morning. I think you should try out.
I got an audition!
Okay, ladies, I got one interest here, and that's the show. I don't care whether you live or die. I want to see you dance, and I want to see you smile. I can't use you if you can't smile. I can't use you if you can't show. I can't use you if you can't sell.
From the creators of Basic Instinct, the last time they took you to the edge. This time, they're taking you all the way.
We take the cash, we cash the check, we show them what they want to see.
You got more natural talent when you dance than anybody I've ever seen. She's going down to the Stardust. She's gonna be in the show.
Right? If someone gets in your way, step on them. It's not fair.
It's not about fair, it's about power.
You're a stripper, don't you get it?
I'm a dancer.
She's dazzling, she's exciting, and she's what Las Vegas is all about.
The passion is real.
I can fall in love with you.
The desire is intense.
You can't touch me, but I can touch you. I'd really love to touch you.
And the show is about to begin. Showgirls. Leave your inhibitions at the door.
Once upon a time, a young drifter, Jesse Spano, Eileen Wuornos, Nomi Malone, played by Elizabeth Berkley, sets off for Vegas, where she is sure her talent of waving her knife-wielding jazz hands in front of her face will make her a star. Having no transportation of her own, she hitchhikes with a driver who eventually robs her. Now, with no transportation or belongings, she meets Molly, played by Gina Ravera, who somehow befriends her despite Nomi's penchant for throwing french fries around at dinner. Molly is the costume designer for the topless stars of the show, Goddess, at the Stardust Casino. Molly convinces Nomi to come backstage with her during one of the performances to meet Crystal Connors, played by Gina Gershon, Goddess's most famous breasts. Clearly enamored, Nomi tells Crystal that she too is a dancer at the world-famous Cheetah Lounge. When Crystal insinuates that working there makes her a whore, Nomi, in a typical Nomi fashion, storms off at a huff, until Molly again calms her down with suggestive dancing at a nightclub. Nomi, though, in typical Nomi fashion, gets arrested after causing a fight between some rando and a club's bouncer, James, played by Glenn Plummer. James eventually bails her out and gives a quarter for his trouble. Back at the Cheetah, Nomi accepts $500 for a lap dance with Zach, played by Kyle MacLachlan, the Stardust entertainment director. She grinds her way to a successful climax while Crystal watches. Also watching is James, who feels a little inspiration in his pants and comes up with a brilliant cabaret dance act for Nomi. James tries to persuade Nomi to take the part and sleep with him, but is rebuffed when Nomi declares that she is having her monthlies and invites him to check, which he does.
Ew.
Later, Nomi finds that her part in the star-studded act has been given to Penny, a fellow Cheetah alumni, but Nomi is only going up, up, up. She is invited to audition for Goddess, presumably by Crystal's doing. Nomi arrives wearing her best Versace, but, in typical Nomi fashion, storms off stage when the producer wants her to ice up her nipples, as they are not as erect as he is. Despite her fragrant ice tossing, Nomi's face-waving jazz hands lands her the role, and she immediately starts thrusting rehearsals.
Thrust that! Thrust that!
Nomi soon finds out how dangerous the world of topless reviews can be when she witnesses a fellow dancer unbedazzle her costume and drop bubbles on stage to ruin another dancer. Nomi, growing increasingly jealous and fame-hungry, files this away in her brain until such a time as she can try her own sabotage. Nomi seduces Zach, and the two engage in floppy titty pool sex. Those floppy breasts did the trick, though, as Zach secures Nomi an audition to be Crystal's understudy. When Nomi is passed over, she exacts her revenge by pushing Crystal down a flight of stairs. Zach gives Nomi the lead role, and before you know it, she is rising naked out of a poorly constructed volcano on stage, as the goddess she was always meant to be. Nomi invites Molly to an after-party where Molly's favorite singer and crush will be in attendance. This singer, however, is the exact opposite of a gentleman, and brutally gang rapes and beats Molly into a hospital stay. Furious, Nomi demands that Zach inform the authorities, but he informs her that Molly will be paid to stay quiet. Also, that involving the cops wouldn't be in Nomi's best interest, since Nomi is actually a former hooker and criminal named Polly. Undeterred, Nomi visits the singer in his hotel room and kicks the ever-loving shit out of him with her thigh-high company-supplied hooker boots. She then pays 2 visits to the hospital, one to Molly and the other to Crystal. Crystal, having received a hefty payment from the Stardust, forgives Nomi for her stair push, and the two share a disgustingly smacky kiss. Fed up with the topless world of Vegas, Nomi once again hitchhikes her way out of town. Coincidentally, with the same driver who earlier robbed her. She pulls her trusty switchblade on him, and the two drive towards Los Angeles, presumably living happily ever after in the critically acclaimed movie Monster. The end. Oh, sorry.
The end. Finally. Showgirls was released on September 22nd, 1995 on almost 1,400 screens. It earned $8 million opening weekend, securing the number 2 spot behind Seven. Other films in the top 10 that weekend included Tu Wong Fu, Dangerous Minds, The Usual Suspects, and Babe.
That'll do, Big. The film would continue to fall at the box office, reaching number 19 by just 5 weeks after its release. Due to the strict age requirements, poor critical response, and bad word of mouth, Showgirls would ultimately gross only $37 million against a budget of $45 million.
The film would later find an audience on home video and eventually turn a profit, a $100 million profit, and one of MGM's most successful home video releases ever. An edited R-rated version was released to stores that wouldn't carry an NC-17 movie. This version runs 3 minutes shorter, still a hefty 128-minute runtime, and removes some of the nudity and trims moments of the more explicit scenes.
Showgirls has a 23% on Rotten Tomatoes with an audience score of 37%. The site's consensus reads, vile, contemptible, garish, and misogynistic, and that might just be exactly Showgirls' point. Metacritic assigned the film a 16, indicating overwhelming dislike. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of C.
I think they were being generous.
Passing.
Yeah. The film was a massive critical failure. Gene Siskel wrote, "Is it sexy? Not when you're laughing." Richard Corliss for Times called it one of those delirious, hilarious botches that could be taught in film schools as how not to. The New Yorker described Berkley's acting as a joy. If you can call it acting, she jumps up and down a lot to indicate excitement. Entertainment Weekly said, "Showgirls is a stripper that thinks it's a dancer."
That's the story.
I know.
They watched the movie. Even its creators and cast had something to say about it after its release. In 1997, Joe Eszterhas said, "Clearly we made mistakes. Clearly it was one of the biggest failures of our time. It failed commercially, critically, it failed on videotape, it failed internationally. In retrospect, part of it was that Paul and I were coming off of Basic Instinct, which defied the critics and was a huge success. Maybe there was a certain hubris involved. Quote, we can do what we want to do, go as far out there as we want to go. unquote. The rape scene was a god-awful mistake, in retrospect, a terrible mistake. And musically, it was eminently forgettable. And in casting, mistakes were made. I think you made this comment a little too soon because it did have a huge home video market.
It did. And I feel like the longer it was on home video, the bigger it got. Right?
Yeah.
So probably because all those 16-year-olds could finally go and watch it somehow.
The Fappening.
The Fappening
of 1996 or whatever the fuck.
The masked fapper strokes again. Later, Kyle MacLachlan recalled his experience watching the film at the premiere. He said, quote, "I was absolutely gobsmacked. I said, this is horrible. And it's a very slow sinking feeling when you're watching the movie and that first scene comes out and you're like, okay, that's a really bad scene. But you say to yourself, well, that's okay. The next one will be better. And you somehow try to convince yourself that it's going to be better. It just gets worse." And I was just like, wow, this is crazy. I mean, I really didn't see that coming. So at the point, I distanced myself from the movie. Now, of course, it has a whole other life as a sort of inadvertent satire. No, satire isn't the right word, but it's inadvertently funny, so it found its place. It provides entertainment, though not in a way I think it was originally intended. It was just maybe the wrong material, with the wrong director, and the wrong cast.
The perfect storm.
It's like the opposite of Basic Instinct.
Yeah. But, like with other critical flops, there's been a resurgence of new, more kind reviews, with critics and audiences embracing the film for its flaws and comedic value. Others have started to claim that Verhoeven and Eszterhas had created a film that seriously satirizes the hunger for fame and the industries that feed on that hunger.
Critics such as Jonathan Rosbaum and Jim Hoberman, as well as filmmakers Jim Jarmusch.
Rosenbaum.
Sorry. What did I say?
Rosbaum.
Rosbauer. Critics such as Jonathan Rosenbaum and Jim Hoberman, as well as filmmakers Jim Jarmusch, Adam McKay, and Jacques Rivet, have gone on record defending Showgirls as a serious satire. In a 1998 interview, Rivet called it one of the greatest American films of the last few years, though very unpleasant. It's about surviving in a world populated by assholes. And that's Verhoeven's philosophy.
I love that quote. And of all the names to correct you on, I corrected you on Jonathan Rosenbaum instead of Jim Hoberman. It's Hoberman.
Sorry. It's Versace.
There are some accolades and legacy for this particular film.
That's right. At the Golden Raspberries, it was nominated for Worst Actor, Kyle MacLachlan, Worst Supporting Actor, Robert Davi and Alan Rakins, Worst Supporting Actress, Gina Gershon and Lynn Tucci, and Worst Prequel or Sequel.
It won Worst Picture, Worst Director, and Worst Actress for Elizabeth Berkley, Worst Screenplay, Worst Screen Couple, or any combination of characters or body parts, Worst New Star, Worst Original Song for Walk Into the Wind.
I listened to Walk Into the Wind this morning while I was making some of these notes, and it's a really terrible song. So... In 1999, the Razzies would name it the worst film of the previous decade, along with nominating Elizabeth Berkley for Worst Actress of the Century. But that was awarded to Madonna.
Whatever. I'd take a veto over Showgirls any day.
Please, yes. Evita. Did you hear that? They called me a whore. It just kind of fits.
Yeah. What's new?
Topless review.
Stripper poles. In 2011, a sequel titled Showgirls 2, Pennies from Heaven, was written, produced, edited, and directed by Irina Rifel, who reprised her bit part as Penny from the first film. It has an 11% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes with no critic score.
I kind of need to see it now. In 2013, an off-Broadway parody called Showgirls, the Musical, was staged and quickly became one of the hottest tickets in town, moving up to larger theaters 3 times. The popular musical featured songs such as Fucking Underwater, The Horrier, Different Places, the Dead Hooker song, Dancing Ain't Fucking Girl, You're a Whore, Darlin', and Don't Lick That Pole, Girl.
And stay tuned for after the episode when we play Don't Lick That Pole, Girl.
That pole is very dirty.
You're going to want to hear it.
The film does have a cult status, right? So Showgirls has achieved cult status, obviously, over the years, according to writer Naomi Klein. Ironic enjoyment of the film initially arose among those with the video before MGM capitalized on that idea. MGM noticed the video was performing well because trendy 20-somethings were throwing Showgirls irony parties, laughing sardonically at the implausibly poor screenplay, and shrieking with horror at the aerobic sexual encounters.
God, can we please throw an ironic Showgirls party?
and shriek with horror, the aerobic. We did that last night.
I know, yeah. We were shrieking with horror with each other, but it'd be so much more enjoyable if there are other people shrieking with us. Except for that one person invariably who'd be like, oh my God, that was hot.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the production a little bit, because there's a little bit of storied history here.
Okay.
All right. So Eszterhas came up with the idea for Showgirls while on vacation at his home in Maui. Bougie.
Douche.
At the Basic Instinct Ocean View Beach House. During lunch in Beverly Hills, Verhoeven told Eszterhas that he had always loved big MGM musicals and wanted to make one. Eszterhas suggested the setting of Las Vegas. Of course, this is not what I would consider a musical.
No, but it's kind of staged like one a little bit.
Its production is just as big as one, I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, just the way that the film was kind of laid out. And it does have like some dancing set pieces. You know what I mean?
This film must have been incredibly complex to make with all of the stage work. I mean, they have like 3 of the same number, at least in the movie, with and without audiences. And then with all the pyrotechnics and all of the choreography and all the dancers and everything happening. You know, I was wondering how this film was kind of constructed watching it. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if, you know, they had the scenes of the show and then just did quick costume changes or something. Not quick, because these were 19-hour days or 16-hour days of dancing naked, you know, and kind of filmed everything kind of out of order so that, you know, in this one, Gina is the star, and this one, you know, so they could just like not have to come back to the same number. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I would assume that's how they did it. Yeah. I mean, that would be the best way. If they didn't do it that way, then that may be why this movie probably sucks.
Yeah. So based on the idea he scribbled onto a napkin, Eszterhas was advanced $2 million to write the script and picked up an additional $1.7 million when the studio produced it into a film. This, along with the scripts for both Verhoeven's previous film, Basic Instinct, obviously, and Sliver, check that out on Patreon, made Eszterhas the highest paid screenwriter in Hollywood history. Verhoeven deferred 70% of his $6 million director's fee, depending on if the film turned a profit.
Oh, poor Verhoeven. I guess it eventually did.
Based on a fucking napkin.
That's a really expensive napkin.
Oh, $3 million.
And I feel like I'm in the wrong business.
Yeah. He said, I wrote Showgirls at the single most turbulent moment in my life, said Eszterhas in his beach fucking house. The stuff I've done since then has been more warm and more humor and is more upbeat.
I don't know what he's done.
I don't know what he's done since.
Somehow, when Eszterhas uses words like warmth and humor and upbeat, I'm like, are you sure you're describing yourself in your work?
Mm-hmm. So Eszterhas and Verhoeven interviewed over 200 Las Vegas strippers and incorporated parts of their stories, not as auditions, but to get their stories into the screenplay to show the amount of exploitation of strippers in Vegas. Eszterhas took out a full-page advertisement in Variety in which he dubbed the film a morality tale and denounced the advertising of the film as misguided, also writing, the movie shows that dancers in Vegas were often victimized, humiliated, used, verbally and physically raped by the men who are at the power centers of the world. So they wanted to market it as more of a thriller, but the studios marketed it as more of like a scandalous, you know, Peeping Tom movie or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think it's a thriller though. You know, I mean,
drop your inhibitions at the door.
Yeah,
you know,
stupid tagline. Yeah. Like really, I don't know, but he's right. I mean, like, I love Vegas. I think it's a great city. I go there all the time, but it's clear that women are completely objectified there.
Yeah.
Daily, nightly, by just countless amounts of tourists. You know what I mean? I can't imagine like what they go through.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the casting here.
Okay.
I can't really imagine other people in these roles.
No.
Because they're just so perfectly bad. But a long list of actresses were considered for the role of Nomi Malone, including Pamela Anderson, Drew Barrymore, Angelina Jolie, Vanessa Marcil, Jenny McCarthy, and Denise Richards. But they all turned it down before Elizabeth Berkley, following the cancellation of Saved by the Bell, signed on to play the role in hopes that it would, change her image and kick off her Hollywood career. Charlize Theron also auditioned and actually wanted the role, despite the nudity, thinking she had to kind of pay her dues to get in the door, seeing how Verhoeven had just discovered Sharon Stone, essentially, right? And wanted kind of the same thing for herself. But she was considered too unknown at the time to hire, and Verhoeven has since said that her audition was excellent. So, dodge that bullet.
For sure. Oh my God, can you imagine?
Her career would have been completely different.
Yes. Or there may not have been a career. Or the movie may have been completely different. I really like Charlize Theron.
I don't know. Yeah. Because some things about Elizabeth Berkley's performance are coming up.
Good. Because I have some things to say about it.
Yeah. So Madonna, Sharon Stone, Sean Young, Daryl Hannah and Finola Hughes, who allegedly turned down the script because she thought it was sexist, were considered for the part of Crystal Connors before Gina Gershon finally became available.
I mean, I can kind of see those women playing this role. Not Finola Hughes, but the rest of them. Maybe not Daryl Hannah either. Okay, maybe just Madonna.
I could see Sean Young.
Yes, she's crazy.
Yeah, she's crazy. Kyle McLachlan says that Dylan McDermott was the first choice for the character of Zach Carey, but he declined and McLachlan was then cast. McLachlan recalled, "That was a decision that was sort of a tough one to make, but I was enchanted with Paul Verhoeven, particularly Robocop, which I loved. It was Verhoeven and Eszterhas, and it seemed like it was going to be kind of a dark and edgy and disturbing and real."
You were kind of wrong.
Well, based on everything he had seen, I mean, everyone didn't expect Showgirls to be what it was. You know?
No, I mean, I feel like coming off of Basic Instinct.
With that writing and directing team, you know?
Yeah, everyone felt like this was going to be an excellent movie.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, like marketed as a fucking gimmick or whatever.
Yeah.
So Dylan McDermott, though, I think I can totally see that in this movie.
Yeah, sure.
I feel like it would have been good. I like him better than Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some of the controversies in this movie.
Because they were Legion.
Oh, they're Legion, but there's like two in particular, right? Like the fallout kind of around Elizabeth Berkley, but also that rape scene, right? So Gina Ravera, who played that character, said the rape scene was traumatic. She was quoted to say, "When you do a scene like that, your body doesn't know it's not real." And she said that it took over 9 excruciating hours to film it.
Jesus Christ.
Which I'm like, there's no excuse for that.
There's
no
really
excuse for 9 hours of that.
No. I mean, those scenes are hard enough to do. I mean, we're just coming off of Basic Instinct where we had a lengthy discussion about that rape scene, right? And depending on which version of that movie you've seen, it's more horrific or less, right? But this particular rape scene in this movie is uncomfortable and like really kind of stomach churning and real, right? And I just don't care for it.
Paul Verhoeven later said of the rape scene, "Nearly every character in this movie is a bad person except for one girl, Molly, and she's the one who gets raped. Molly is the only really genuinely supportive person, and she is punished for it. The reason I did this was to show that Vegas is not a nice place, and that is basically what the movie is all about. It's possible Showgirls was lacking in closure. Even some of my closest collaborators felt that way and have said that they thought the rape scene took the fun out of the movie."
It's kind of an about face, really. I mean, like, I almost completely forgot that it was in the movie until she shows up at that party.
Yeah, it's meant to be a catalyst, right? For her to kind of get real and say it's not worth it. Mm-hmm. And I almost think, you know, in hindsight, which is always, you know, better than when you're trying to do something, you know, I think it might have been better if there was maybe an attempted rape on Elizabeth Berkley's character by that guy. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe if it was her crush, you know, and then, you know, came back and took her revenge for the attempted, you know, and I feel like that would have been the same effect.
I do. I mean, I would agree with you. And I feel like that would be a major catalyst for Nomi's character, right? To leave the city and just go off and do something else.
Also, I would have loved it if they had kind of just like, if she had not been in the hospital, like if that had been the case, then, you know, Gina Ravera's Molly character would have been available for them to kind of Thelma and Louise it out of Vegas together, which would have been a better ending.
Yeah. I do like, though, because it kind of redeems Nomi a little bit.
Shitty bookend.
Yeah, I know. Kind of ridiculous. It does redeem Nomi's character a little bit, though, that she's willing to go and like find this revenge for her friend who she repeatedly treated like shit throughout the movie, despite Molly always being there for her at every turn.
Yep.
You know? And I think that does good things for that character, and it really does like sort of speed the ending up a little bit, which is welcome at that point. It's a long movie.
Yeah, I think rape is an important human story to tell, but you know, it can be a little bit exploitive in some circumstances, you know, and Verhoeven is exploitive in all of his films.
It's true.
For many, many different subjects, not just this, you know, but you know, maybe we should say, hey, Verhoeven, like maybe stay away from that since you're already exploitive, like stop it.
Yeah. Or, you know, just tone it down just a little bit. Maybe just hint at it.
Yeah. So I guess we should talk about the fallout for Elizabeth Berkley's career.
Yeah.
She was dropped by her agent, and no new agents would call her. She was a joke for many, many years, in some ways still is, and suffered the fate many falsely ascribed to Sharon Stone.
It's true. I feel like it's worse than Sharon Stone, though.
Way worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the reasons the film is reviled is because of Elizabeth Berkley's over-the-top acting style, right? And Berkley, who before this was obviously best known for her overachieving goody-goody Jessie Spano in the classic Saved by the Bell show, certainly went for it with gusto and abandon that you rarely see in a major motion picture, right? Mostly that's kind of for stage, right? Yeah. And as a result, she was roundly torn apart by the critics. But it turns out this was actually director Paul Verhoeven's fault. He admitted in an interview in 2015 that her acting style was his idea and not Berkley's. He said, quote, "People have, of course, criticized her for being over the top in her performance. I mean, while I was watching the movie, I kept calling her Muppety, right? Yeah. She was like fucking Muppet.
She was a full-on Muppet.
Yeah. Most of that comes from me. I pushed it in that direction. Good or not good, I was the one who asked her to exaggerate everything, every move, because that was the element of style that I thought would work for the movie." He admitted it was the wrong choice and her career never really recovered because of it.
Yeah, I remember all of this, right? I mean, so like when this movie came out, I was not old enough to go see it in the theater. I was 1 year shy of being able to see it.
I was a couple years shy.
And I really wanted to. And then, some friends who had seen it or people that I knew had saw it said that it was awful and just talked about how terrible her performance was, right? And I think we were all very curious because, I mean, like, we're the Saved by the Bell generation, we all watched that. And we kind of wanted to see what she was doing in this movie, right?
Yeah, because it was such a huge, that was just as talked about as much as Verhoeven or Eszterhas, that was kind of film circles. But in the pop culture circles, we were talking about Saved by the Bell.
Right, exactly.
And like the huge contrast between her going from this goody-goody image, over here into a Paul Verhoeven, naked all the time movie. And honestly, if I watch this movie with more than just a surface level or passing glance, she is very good as far as the energy that she brings and all of the choreography. And many scenes, she has to do a lot of things at once, right? And if that was Paul Verhoeven's direction, she did an excellent job. Yeah. She did her job, right? And exactly to, how it was, prescribed to her and dictated to her, and so in a way, she's a victim in more than one ways to Verhoeven, if not, the critics, obviously, more so. But, if you look at all of her dancing and all the energy she has, just really sharp, quick movements, exacting, there's a lot for her to do in this. And she's doing a lot of heavy lifting. Yes, her acting is like a fucking Muppet. But now that I'm reading all of this stuff, it's making a lot more sense that it's like, why is there this huge disconnect for her physicality acting and her like vocal acting? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I don't disagree with you. I think that she does a decent job in this movie. Yeah, parts of it are super Muppety, right? And knowing that Verhoeven sort of like pushed her to be a little bit more over the top explains a lot. But you're right. She does a lot of things. The dancing, while seemingly like easy to do, it doesn't seem that complicated. It is when you have to do it in unison with people and be perfect each time on each take. Not to mention like being naked in a movie for almost the entirety of it is a big fucking deal for an actress, right? And they don't deserve to be like completely shat on. You have to at least like look at that and say like it took some fucking guts for you to go and do this movie. And people try to change their like perceptions of themselves in Hollywood all the time by picking roles that are against type, right? Yeah. And this maybe kind of backfired for her. I don't think that it backfired for her solely because of her performance. I think it's mostly just not a very good movie. So
there's that, and it's way over long.
It is. I mean, like 133 minutes or something like that. Like,
it was over 2 hours.
Yeah, that's ridiculous for this movie. Yeah. There was no need to have some of the scenes that they had in there. They try to wrap up each individual character at some point in the movie and give Nomi some closure on the relationships that she had. And some of these characters, we didn't get to know that well or really care about, but they're still wrapped up, at length.
Well, should we talk about some influences? Now that we've talked about the film, I feel like this is there is some Sunset Boulevard going on with this character. There's really some All About Eve. Really, definitely. It's definitely like a heightened Muppety version of All About Eve in a way, except that our main hero, our perspective, is not the older actress, right? It's the younger. I'm also seeing like A Star Is Born a little bit in here. I'm seeing Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
For sure.
And Eileen Wuornos. I'm seeing some of that going on.
Yeah, and Eileen Wuornos was in the news a lot of the time, right? Yeah. So I'm sure that a lot of that was depicted in there. But yeah, I can see all these influences in this movie. And I don't know. I mean, I All About Eve for sure, right? I think this movie is essentially All About Eve, just told in a reverse, like you just said. So I don't.
And Black Swan. I think it definitely like probably influenced Black Swan a little bit. Maybe incidentally, I'm not sure.
Maybe. I mean,
There's definitely that Winona Ryder, thing going on.
That's right. Aging starlet and an ingenue.
Which is, did you suck his cock or whatever?
Yeah, this movie's totally influenced by lots of other things, and I can see how this movie also influenced things moving forward. I mean, obviously, like we talked about, people enjoy this movie today for whatever reason. Either they're laughing at it on purpose, or they're trying to glean some sort of like knowledge from it, right?
Well, there's real comedy in it too that we're laughing at. The whole tits popping out thing, the whole stuff.
Oh my God, yeah.
Basically everything that was going on at the Foxy Trot or whatever the fuck that thing was called.
Cheetah.
The cheetah.
Yeah, I kind of want to go to that cabaret. If something exists like that in Vegas where they have strippers, which I probably wouldn't pay attention to, but some random like fat lady comes out and tells jokes and makes her tits pop out of her dress.
Well, that's interesting because it really felt like it was supposed to be a drag queen.
Yes.
Right. But this is like a female drag queen, which there is such a thing.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because I felt like, do you think it was like replaced? Like that would have been too risque at that moment? No, because I felt like Tu Wong Fu kind of came out around the same time too.
It was in the top 10 that same weekend. Right?
So, okay. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like a drag queen, if they were to make this movie today, I feel like that character would definitely be a drag queen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I think I would like a lot better. But I do like that character.
Although I feel like drag queens are kind of thin on the ground in gentlemen's bars and clubs. You know what I mean?
Straight ones. Yeah.
Which this was.
Gay gentlemen's bars, though.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Maybe we should remake this movie with naked men.
Yeah. We can do it like Show Guys and it's be like about Chippendales in Vegas or something.
Oh my God. Let's make it happen, shall we? Can you imagine how fun it's going to be to cast that movie?
He bought me a Hermes.
He bought me a Hermes, but gave me the herpes. I don't know. I mean,
it's called herpes.
Some of you have never called it herpes and it shows. Oh my God, that was good. We're writing this movie already. But you're right. I mean, like, there are some intentionally funny moments in this movie, but I kind of feel like most of it was not intentional. People keep calling it a satire. I don't really necessarily see that. I think they were just going for straightforward erotic drama. And some of the things that they made, it sort of turned out to be funny. I mean, the lines are ridiculous.
Yeah. And I think they were intentionally so, a lot of it. I mean, Eszterhas has come out and said, yes, this line, don't you miss like getting cummed on, is supposed to be funny. Like, could you imagine a world where it's not? And I would argue that knowing Verhoeven and his other films, he likes message movies. He really does. And this is about, the sex industry and taking, and, the sexism and the taking advantage of women and stuff like that. And it's, I think, very intentionally, satirical a little bit. We're not even satirical, it's just on the fucking nose, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can see
it's
that.
Kind of a Me Too movie. You know what I mean?
Now, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I laugh at it for the wrong reasons whenever I watch this movie. And I haven't seen this movie before you and I watched it together last night in well more than like 15 years, maybe even more than that. I watched it a lot when it first came out.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know why. I mean, I wasn't interested in breasts really, but I kind of just liked this movie when I was, a teenager.
I guess I was younger, and then I probably saw it again and went somewhere in my 20s or something, and then this is it. I mean,
I definitely
watch it once per decade.
I definitely owned the VHS of this movie, and I watched it frequently.
Wow.
So,
all right. With your brother? Or
yeah, Paul
borrowed it from your brother?
He did watch it with me quite a bit. Maybe that's why he was constantly like leaving to excuse himself. I have no idea. But I mean, like, I never found this movie to be titillating in any sense, you know what I mean? And I'm not quite sure that was what they were going for anyway, especially if we're going to talk about it, satirizing the sex industry or whatnot. I don't think it's supposed to be titillating. That fucking pool sex scene certainly is not.
Trust it.
Fast that.
Well, I've got some fun facts for you.
Oh my God, I'm super excited.
All right. The rights to show the film on television were eventually purchased by VH1. And because of the film's frequent nudity, though, a censored version was created with black bras and panties digitally rendered to hide all of the exposed breasts and genitalia. Also, several scenes were removed entirely, shortening the movie by at least 45 minutes.
Thank you, VH1.
I kind of want to see that cut.
I do. You're doing the Lord's work.
Berkley refused to redub her lines because MGM refused to pay her fee of only $250. So a noticeably different actress's voice can be heard on the soundtrack for that shortened version of the film.
It's so sad for Elizabeth Berkley. I feel so bad for her.
Her agent fired her. She could not get a call from any agents, and they would not return her calls, and they wouldn't pay her $250 to dub this. Even though they went to the trouble to digitally place bras and panties across the entire movie.
They wouldn't pay her $250.
Oh.
How much did you get when you were in dubbing work? 50, sometimes 100.
All right, next up, Paul Verhoeven actually didn't want to direct Showgirls at first because he didn't like Eszterhas' original script. He wanted to make a film about with Arnold Schwarzenegger instead called Crusade, of which actually there's quite a few. I don't know if there's an actual documentary, but there's a few mini documentaries about it, like floating around on YouTube. And it was kind of a cool project, kind of like what you'd think like The Northman would be, but more of, Crusades, right? Telling the story of the Crusades. And I thought that would have been really, really cool, considering, that's also a cool team up with Verhoeven and Schwarzenegger, generally speaking. But MGM passed on it because they couldn't afford to make it in addition to Cutthroat Island. So they did Cutthroat Island instead. Due to this film and that one, Coralco Pictures went under, and you will not see their brand in front of a movie since Showgirls. Cutthroat Island.
They went for Cutthroat Island.
Destroyed.
What a
They went
movie.
for Cutthroat Island instead of a Paul Verhoeven Crusade movie.
That is the very definition of the wrong choice.
I want them to go back and do that. It's not too late. Damn it.
With Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah. You could play the king or something. I don't fucking know.
He could be like God in heaven. Watching the Crusades.
So, when the film swept the 16th annual Razzie Awards, Paul Verhoeven turned up in person to accept Worst Director and Worst Picture. He was the first director to ever turn up to collect the award.
I mean, be proud of your movie in any way.
He did it very cheekily, so
yeah,
it was nice. Elizabeth Berkley once said of the film, "Ever since those reviews of Showgirls, it's like I was that woman in the Scarlet Letter, except that instead of having to wear the letter A for adulteress, I was condemned to wear the letter S for showgirl." Coincidence or not, but Berkley won the Razzie Award for Worst Actress, running up against Demi Moore, who actually played the role described by Berkley in The Scarlet Letter from 1995.
Oh my God, I remember that Demi Moore movie. That's a terrible version of that book.
It's a fun movie.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it a couple times.
Super campy by the end of it.
Yes.
It's like intentionally camp by the end of it. I think there's like a hooker with a fucking rocket launcher or something. Like, it's crazy.
Jesus
It just goes off the fucking rails because it starts off as kind of like a drone. Anyway, whatever. Next up. When Nomi goes to audition for Goddess, the director says she looks like Pollyanna. Near the end of the film, her real name is revealed by Zach to be Polly Ann, revealing why Nomi looks so startled when called Pollyanna. I didn't catch that. I knew it was Polly, but I didn't connect those two scenes together.
On my second viewing of Showgirls, right, I was just like, oh, because he's like Pollyanna, and she's like, what, what'd you say, right? And so like,
What'd you call me?
The fuck you say? But yeah, no, I've caught that. Because a name like Pollyanna and Pollyann, like, it kind of stand out. You know what I mean? Like, it's supposed to, it makes her sound like the most innocent of women. You know what I mean? It's that kind of name, but
no, Pollyann is a whore's name.
We apologize to anybody named Pollyann listening to this
They
episode.
don't exist.
If they do, they're whores.
All right, so last up, allegedly, the only time actresses complained that they felt uncomfortable during the entire filming of this movie was during the scenes with the monkeys, who constantly stared at their bare breasts.
I mean, that's the closest animal to man.
It's the happiest she looked in the whole movie. I caught one.
I got a monkey.
Or when she was licking that pole.
Don't lick that pole, girl. Girl, don't lick that pole.
But that's all I got.
Those were fun and a fun movie to watch. So I would expect nothing less. But we have some questions to ask about Showgirls, like we do about every movie that we deep dive into on the Film Flamers. And let's just go ahead and start with, is Showgirls a horror movie?
No.
Not for the reasons that this podcast normally assigns horror.
No, and halfway through I was like, we really should have done Total Recall for a triple Sharon Stoner this month, and I don't know, and we should have relegated Showgirls to some other.
I mean, so first of all, listeners, this isn't available to watch in any sort of streaming capacity except for Pluto or Tubi with commercials.
Yes, emphatically yes. And so we had to sit through all these fucking commercials, and it was a nightmare. But
it took us about 3 hours to watch Showgirls last night.
I felt like a fucking rube.
Yeah. But, I mean, that is to say that we've been looking forward to rewatching this movie and talking about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But during that rewatch, I was just like, God, I mean, like, this movie is bad, right? And, like, we're having a good time watching it, sort of, and, like, making fun of it. But I was just like, no, I mean, like, this doesn't seem like a movie that sort of fits our podcast, you know? But still, it's a fun watch. So,
yeah.
Were you scared while watching Showgirls?
Yes.
Yeah, terrified. At every turn.
Yes.
Out of 5 stars, what would you rate Showgirls?
Actually higher than you'd think, or higher than many listeners would probably think. I gave it a 3-star because it's not good, but it's enjoyable.
It is 3 stars for me as well. It's a fun ride. You know, I've seen it enough times that I remember some of the dialogue, and it's just fun. With that one fucking rape scene again, like bringing things down a lot. So if they didn't have that, I maybe would rate it higher, but it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Sure.
Finally, who's the hottest guy in Showgirls?
I guess it has to be Kyle McLachlan or the singer at the end. He was kind of a daddy a little bit.
The rapist?
God. No, he was directing the rape.
That's right. You're right.
The one that got high heels through his eyeballs, I'm assuming. Really, like, why not show his body? Fuck.
For real.
I would have loved to see all the little, like, heel prints in him after what he did.
Because she whooped his fucking ass with that boot.
But he was pretty hot.
He was. To me, the hottest guy is Glenn Plummer, the guy who played James, the bouncer who was teaching her to dance, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's really fucking sexy to me. Oh my God. I got towels. Yeah, I don't know. Like, he's got a super tight body. You know what I mean? Like, he dances. He just looks sexy to me. That's definitely my choice for sure. Well, I think that just about wraps up our conversation on Showgirls. As always, we want to know what you think about this movie and our conversation, so go find us on social media at The Film Flamers on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram.
You can email us at tiredqueens@filmflamers.com or call our hotline at 972-666-7733. Hot girls in Vegas are waiting for you to pop their titties.
I really want to know what it feels like to have someone come on me again.
So call our hotline. Jesus.
And tell her. That's it for all the content here this month on the main feed, but head over to patreon.com/thefilmflamers for our bonus episode this month. We got more Sharon Stone and more Joe Eszterhas because we're talking Sliver.
And next month on Patreon, we probably will do some sort of Verhoeven poll.
That's right.
Don't lick that poll, just take it.
He's right, because in July we got more Verhoeven coming for you. We're talking Robocop
and Starship Troopers.
Message movies abound. And more titties.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, I think it's time for me to go off and try to find someone to give a lap dance to.
Like an old whore.
It's what's on my business card.
Well, me too.
Yeah. So let's go off and have some sweet dreams. My sweet dreams include Versace, always.
And Hermes.
Where's Spago? It's just down from Versace.
And also, this is Don't Lick That Pole.
I see you being real sexy girl. You wanna turn them on. You wanna get their blood rushing meningitis, HIV, chlamydia. So don't lick that pole, girl.